Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date in which will live in infamy, the United States was suddenly and deliberately attacked by the naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. This quote was taken from Franklin D. Roosevelt's Day of Infamy speech and became one of the most well-known phrases in U.S. history. The attack on Pearl Harbor is a pivotal event in American history because it impacted the lives of thousands of Americans and drove President Roosevelt to declare war on Japan, inducting the United States into World War II. Today, we will discuss the following. First, the immediate impact of Japan's surprise attack, then the oil embargo that fueled their decision to attack, and last, the aftermath of the attack and its consequences. In high school, I did extensive research over this topic, so I am very familiar with this event and its significance. Early on December 7th, 1941, the U.S. naval military base in Hawaii, Pearl Harbor, was attacked by Japanese forces in two waves, which had devastating impacts. At 7:55 a.m., Japanese bombers initiated their attack. The National Museum of the United States Army provides a first-hand account from Navy sailor Cecil Camp in which he recalls the sudden attack. I had been on watch about 20 minutes when the first torpedo hit the ship on the port side. During the first attacks on American battleships, the USS Arizona was hit and sunk, killing over 1,000 men. Shortly after, a second wave of Japanese planes flew in, continuing to damage battleships while targeting military airfields. According to the National Museum of the United States Army, the Japan forces were able to damage or destroy 347 aircrafts and all 8 of the battleships stationed in Pearl Harbor. In total, 2,335 American citizens lost their lives that day. This event shocked the nation, and Americans were demanding answers from Japan. Ultimately, Japan's reasoning behind this attack was because of the oil embargo placed by the U.S., which was negatively impacting the Japanese empire. An article published by the U.S. Department of State explains that Japan's rapid military expansion in Asia became threatening to United States interests. In retaliation, the United States imposed an embargo on Japan's exports and seized all Japanese assets in America. Because Japan began to suffer from intense shortages and were unable to retreat their military, they resorted to any means necessary to get the resources they needed. The primary goal of this attack was to prevent the U.S. Pacific Fleet from interfering in Japanese expansion by instilling fears of war into America. However, this only fueled the U.S. government to take action. Ultimately, Japan's attack was a failure and only made the United States a prime enemy in this war. Soon after the attack, the United States entered World War II, and Japanese Americans faced discrimination and backlash. On December 8th, the United States declared war on Japan, despite their efforts of being neutral during it and avoiding conflict. In fact, 388 of the 389 members of Congress voted for this declaration of war, according to the National Museum of the United States Army. Not only did this event impact the United States as a whole, but it specifically impacted Japanese Americans, as Americans became suspicious of anyone with Japanese ancestry, including those living in America. An article from from the National World War II Museum explains that this influenced President Roosevelt's 9066 executive order, in which around 120,000 Japanese Americans were removed from their homes and relocated to incarceration camps for the duration of the war. In addition, these camps offered little privacy, lacked protection from extreme weather, and forced strangers to live with each other because of the lack of space. While the Japanese Americans endured these conditions, they were denied the freedom to live as they pleased, according to the National World War II Museum. Not only did this attack on Pearl Harbor push the U.S. into war, but it also drastically changed the lives of Japanese Americans because of discriminatory views and internal distrust. In summary, we have reviewed the main aspects of Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor. First, we discussed the immediate impact of Japan's surprise attack. Then we discussed the oil embargo that influenced Japan's decision to attack. And last, we went over the aftermath and consequences of this shocking event. Remember December 7th, 1941, as this day of infamy has forever shaped American unity, culture, and history.